Hello pupils, you are welcome to General Studies class. I am Uncle Popo. I believe you are ready for today's lesson. If you are ready, I'm also ready. Let's start the usual way we do open our lesson. Uncle Popo is here, I am also here. We are here together. 100% attention. 100% attention is what I need from you. Our subject for today is basic science and technology. Basic science and technology. In basic science and technology, in our last lesson, we discussed about force, where we talked about pulling and pushing. When you pull, you draw to yourself. When you push, you move it away outside. We also talked about the categories of forces, where we discussed about the contact force and non-contact force. We discussed about types of forces, gravitational force, electric force, and so on, and frictional force. Today, we are moving on to another topic, and that is friction. We briefly discussed about frictional force in our last lesson. We want to talk about friction fully for today. What is friction? What is friction? To define friction, I have this very short song. The words of the song is this: friction is a force that opposes motion when two surfaces are in contact. Friction is a force that opposes motion when two surfaces are in contact. Listen to the song. Friction is a force that opposes motion when two surfaces in contact. Friction is a force that opposes motion when two surfaces in contact. You like the song? Let's go again. Friction is a force that opposes motion when two surfaces in contact. Friction is a force that opposes motion when two surfaces in contact. Good. That is the song, and that's the definition for friction. It is a force that opposes motion when two surfaces are in contact. That is what friction is, a force that tries to stop movement in between two surfaces. Let's check the learning objective for today. By the end of today's lesson, you should be able to define friction, describe the effects of friction, and you should be able to state advantages and disadvantages of friction. Going to the meaning of friction. Friction is a force which tends to oppose the motion of any two surfaces in contact. Friction is a force that tries to stop movement in between two surfaces. Just like as we move about, we are applying friction because there is a force that is trying to stop our movement. A force is trying to stop our movement. Just like when you are playing football, when you exert force on the ball, it goes. And at a certain stage, it will stop because no more force is pushing it. There is a certain thing that stops the ball, and that is friction. It stops the movement. So that's what we mean by friction. Let's look at some effects of friction. Number one is friction produces heat. What did I say? Friction produces heat. Let's practicalize that. Let me see your two palms. Show it to me like this. Like this again. Then let's rub. 1, 2, 3, go. Continue rubbing. Rub. Faster now. Faster. Good. Use it to touch your cheek. What happens? The heat is hot. That is a friction. It's trying to stop the movement in between your palms. So that's the effect. It produces heat. Let's look at another one. Friction wears away surfaces. It wears away surfaces. Just like your shoe or your sandal. After you have used it to walk for a very long time, after some time you see that the sole of your shoe or the sole of your sandal will have worn away somehow. So that is the effect of friction. It wears away surfaces. And in the motor vehicle tires, if you have noticed it before, when the tire is bought newly, you see that everything will be very, very okay. But after some times, it wears away. Another effect of friction is it produces light. Friction can produce light. To put that into practice, when you take a sharp object, especially maybe cutlass, and you strike it on the concrete, you see that it brings out light. That's another effect of friction. That's another effect of friction. Let's look at the activities to show that the effect of friction. The first one, we talked about friction produces heat. I think we've done that. You rub your palms together faster for a while, then you notice that your hands get hot, and this is caused by friction. Another activity is the activity 2, friction wears away surfaces. We have talked about that the sole of your shoe, when it's newly bought, cannot be compared after it has been used for some time. Something will have happened to the sole. You can see from the diagram here, not the same thing. That's another effect of friction. When you shed the sole of a shoe or sandal at home, do you notice the wear in the soles is caused by friction? Let's look at the third one. That's activity 3. Friction can produce light. We have also talked about that. You take a metal object, let's say cutlass, and drag on a concrete floor, you will observe some sparks. That's another effect of friction. Reduction of friction. There are a number of ways to reduce friction. We need to reduce friction so that we can have some desired result we need from certain objects. 1, how do we now reduce friction? Make the surfaces smoother, e.g. by applying lubricants. Your lubricant could be oil, it could be grease. When you apply it, it helps the machine to work effectively. Just like you have noticed in grinding machine, the metal one, you see that we have a place there where they apply oil or grease so that it will give you the desired result you want. That is to say that you make the surface smoother, you apply oil or grease. That's the first one. The second one is roll the bodies instead of sliding them. That's another way you can reduce friction. You roll the bodies instead of sliding them. Next is you use ball bearings. I think you can see the diagram of ball bearing there. When you use it, it's make it easier for the machine to work easily and better. Another one is you polish the surfaces to make them even. You polish the surfaces to make them even. When you polish the surfaces, it will make the surface to be smoother, and it helps to reduce the friction there. Now to advantages of friction. Friction is very, very important, and with the following advantages, we know the reason why friction is the advantages of friction. 1, we can stand and walk because the soles of our feet or shoes can grip the ground through friction. We can stand and walk because the soles of our feet or shoes can grip the ground through friction. Friction is helping us to move easily on the floor. Unlike the wet ground, it's not, you cannot walk easily on a wet ground, especially ties. One may easily fall down. But on the dry ground, with the help of friction, you walk easily, and that's number 1 advantage. The second one is this: it allows for movement of vehicles on the road and trains on the rails. The movement of vehicle will be made easy with the help of friction. That is why when rain falls, they advise the drivers not to speed at all because of the slippery ground, and it can cause damage to the car and to the people in the car. So with the help of friction, it helps the vehicles to move easily and safer. Likewise, the trains on the rails. That's another advantage. The third one is it can be used for generating heat and electricity. We use friction to generate heat. In some places, we need heat to perform some certain things. With the help of friction, that could be achieved. That's another advantage. Let's look at another one. We can hold things firmly because our palms grip objects through friction. Like I am holding this. It's because of friction that this is not, it's because of friction that I could hold this thing very tightly. So it helps us to hold or grip some objects very tightly. That's another advantage. We move on to disadvantages of friction. As we have listed the advantages, friction also has some disadvantages. Why it is not good. Disadvantages of friction. 1, it causes wastage of energy. It causes wastage of energy. Friction requires us to exert some forces And to exert such force, you will need some energy in you. And at times, you waste some unnecessary energy on certain things. 2, it leads to wearing away of parts of engine surfaces. Some of engine surfaces are worn out because of friction, because the force applying on it makes the engine to be reduced in strength and in value. That's another disadvantage. The next one is it generates heat and can cause fire outbreak. It generates heat and can cause fire outbreak. Even though we need heat to do some certain things, but at times the heat we generate can cause fire, and this can lead to fire outbreak. That's another disadvantage. Now let's look at the advantages we have talked about. In walking, it requires a friction to do so. In stopping in a motor vehicle, with the help of friction, we can achieve that. In holding things firmly, is with the help of friction, you are able to do that. Fixing it on the wall is the friction that helps in doing that too. Disadvantage, soles wear out, tires wearing out, stone steps away, and so on. Those are the advantages and disadvantages of friction. I have this short video for you to watch. Enjoy it.
How do things move in real life? Say a ball is moving on a flat ground and there's no external force acting on it. Will the ball eventually come to a halt? Yes, it will. Have you ever wondered why? Say you're skating on an ice rink and your friend is skating on the road. Whose movement do you think will be smoother? Yours. When you hold a bottle in your hand, why doesn't it just slip through and fall? Sometimes when you're walking around in a mall, do you remember seeing a caution sign to warn you about the floor being wet? What explains all this? The answer is friction. The reason why the ball eventually comes to a halt is because of the force of friction. The reason why skating on an ice rink is easier because the force of friction is lesser there. The bottle doesn't slip through because the force of friction between your hand and the bottle doesn't allow it to do so. If the floor is wet, the friction offered by it reduces and there are chances that you might slip and fall. So what is this friction we're talking about? It's quite easy to understand its concept. Friction is nothing but a force. It is a force exerted by a surface where an object moves across it. In the first case, when the ball is moving in this direction, the force of friction is acting in the opposite direction. The force of friction offered by the ice rink floor is less than the force of friction offered by the road. Hence, skating on the ice rink is easier and seems effortless. The bottle does not slip down because the surface of your hand offers a friction in the upward direction. And in the case of the floor in the mall, the soapy water reduces the friction offered by the floor.
Welcome back. Good job, you. I hope you have gained one or two things from the video. It actually explains what we have talked about in today's lesson. In today's lesson, we have successfully talked about what friction is, the advantages and disadvantages of friction. We've talked about ways to reduce friction. Until next time, next lesson. But before that, I have a few questions for you. Look at your screen, answer the following questions. Your time starts now. Welcome back. Uncle Popo is there. I believe you are also there. These are the answers. Mark it accordingly and score yourself. We have come to the end of today's lesson. Until next time, next lesson. Before I go, let's quickly sing our song. Friction is a force that opposes motion. When two surfaces in contact, friction is a force that opposes motion. When two surfaces in contact. Thank you. Bye.